ladies, I just wanted to make a quick announcement. If you have not gotten a ticket, please go outside really quick. We do have a raffle of some cool products and books. So Lida up front has a raffle ticket. Make sure you grab one, and then we will get started here in a couple more minutes, okay? much for being here. Welcome to Elevate Your Voice in the Workspace, an event in Utah, hosted by Utah 40 Over 40, and we left here at the UVU Entrepreneurship Institute, and we're so excited to be here. Thank you for joining us. Can you guys move a little bit closer? Just a tad.
Yeah,
so
you're not
we
shy.
can
We want to feel your energy.
We're expecting, we have about 110 people that register, so they're just going to be trickling in. I think it'll be easier for us to be united and closer so that it's not, people are not walking in front of you. So we're going to get started. We are the co-founders of Utah 40 Over 40, and my name is Diane Acevedo.
I'm Julia Deeper.
And I'm Robin Cohen.
And we are really trying to continue to have the conversation of women in the workplace and re-entering the workforce. And we're going to get started by talking about why we have this event today. So Utah statistics show that the economy in Utah is thriving, and we are considered #1 for unicorn companies amongst the nation, which is so exciting. That's right. And statistics show, I just want to read this out loud, that companies, 1 out of 61 companies, so 1.65% are unicorns, almost 70% above national average. Right? That's amazing because it gives us so many opportunities, but aside from that, Utah has the #1 fastest economy in the country. Over $55 billion in market value has been created in the last 2 years. 1 out of every 61 VC backup companies become worth $1 billion or more. That's exciting for the opportunities, right? But then, Robin, talk to us about the statistics.
Well, then there's that other
Then there's the
end
truth.
of the spectrum when it comes to women's position here and our representation across the state. And so we have now become into the 5th year of being 50th in the nation for women's equality, which is unfortunate. So we have some work to do there. Women are earning 25% less than, so it's still probably around like 69 cents, 70 cents on the dollar to a man's salary. Women only fill 27.1% of C-suite executives, elected state officials, and department directors. And finally, 70% of Utah women are in the workforce. So there's just this odd balance in terms of what's happening in our economy, but then the position that women have in various different, both politically, professionally, in our state here. So we have some work to do.
Yes. How do we go from being the best and the worst? Right? That's quite the drastic difference. But there's also, statistics are staggering and not good. However, there's so much positive going on in the community with Utah that I really want to talk about too, because there's so many organizations, women-led organizations, that are really collaborating, trying to lift women, entrepreneurs, and other just in the workforce in general. And that is one of our partners, our sponsors, the UVU Entrepreneurship Institution, where we left. Megan, you want to come up and talk about your objective? Woo!
So WeLift is one of the programs that the UVU Entrepreneurship Institute offers, and the purpose of the program is to provide a space where women entrepreneurs can come and meet other women entrepreneurs, learn from women entrepreneurs, and just grow in their businesses and in themselves. So we offer on every Wednesday, you're able to come and just work in our beautiful space. The only thing you have to pay for is the parking, which is $1 an hour. And we have free Wi-Fi, snacks and things. We have hot chocolate. So you're welcome to come any Wednesday if you just feel like getting out of the house. And then we also offer a monthly event every month. So like next month, we have someone coming to talk about how to get your business on the first page of Google. And we do those every first Wednesday of the month. So we just have lots of programs that are trying to support women who are trying to become entrepreneurs and just need someone to help lift them.
That's amazing. Thank you.
We just wanted to say thank you for our partnership and the sponsorship. The assistant dean, Tom McDonald, is here, and we're just so grateful. Grateful that you guys are having a conversation, grateful that you are movers and shakers, and that you are just making an impact in the community.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for letting us be here. Thank you for everything that you guys do. Thank you for elevating women with us. When we found out that Utah, all three of us, when we found out that Utah was ranked 50th in the nation for women's equity, all three of us knew we had to do something. And when we came together, our objective was to really elevate women's voice. And not just in the workplace, but in every area of their life, in every genre, in every race, in every area, every age, a woman needed to be elevated. And we really come together, and we find that when you have the courage to use your voice, you have the power to positively impact not just generations of women to come, but it's a positive influence that you have the right to use. It's your special gift, and it should be cherished and never diminished, never. Every time you speak truth and stand up for the truth, you are healing the wounds of all of the generations of women who have been silenced before you. I like what Steve Jobs says. Don't let the noise of other people's opinion drown your own inner voice. So speak. So in 100 years from now, not another woman has to say, when in history did women lose their voice? We want to be sure that we're a part of that experience of making sure that every woman has an opportunity to speak truth, every woman in the workplace, so that these numbers, these unicorns, represent women. They represent all of us together. That is our objective, and we're so excited to have that discussion today. We're now going to introduce our speakers and our panelists. Oops, do you want to-
Okay, so I have the privilege to introduce our moderator, Becky. I'm going to read a little bit about their bios. These women are incredible, all four panelists. So Becky is a multi-generational Utah, a former social worker. She first ran for office in 2008 because she genuinely cares about people of our great state. From 2009 to 2018, she delivered on her promise to truly represent her district in Utah House of Representatives by listening to the people and boldly tackling their issues with effective solutions. Each Saturday during her 10 legislation session, Becky invited constituents into her home for bagels and breakfast to talk about their concerns, answer their questions, and learn for every real struggle and opportunity in their lives. Becky earned wide respect in the legislature from both sides of the aisle and problem solving, receiving top ranks for effectiveness of passing bills and pushing forward the tenacity and compassion on challenging issues like healthcare, clean air, and climate change, the economy, and education. Becky ran for U.S. Senate in 2022 with the goal to moving Utah forward with opportunities and prosperity for families, businesses, and communities. Becky, you want to come on?
Yes.
Okay, Nicole Tenio. So Nicole Tenio brings unique dedication and professional strength to her more than 25 years of experience in the legal technology industry by continually renewing her passion for technology and law with an outstanding ability to educate those around her to utilize the tool that technology is for the art that is law. Throughout her career, Nicole has implemented multiple initiatives which allow attorneys to focus on practicing law while removing administrative burdens and saving clients money. She has created technology-based solutions for law firms, corporations, in-house counsel, and nonprofit organizations, which continue to develop organically with enhancements as the needs reveal themselves over time. In addition to being a legal champion and change ambassador, Nicole advises corporations and attorneys on e-discovery best practices, process improvement methodologies, and change management. Her exceptional leadership abilities and well-developed people skills leads to consistent success when building and maintaining client relationships, consulting on emerging technologies, and advising on innovative solutions. Nicole, come to the stage.
Okay. Amelia England is the marketing manager at ISO Talent and a writer for TechBuzz, sister companies based in Silicon Slopes. She is also a creative writer with an MA in literature from Oregon State University. A lifetime local, she's passionate about Utah's art and tech scenes, diversity of transplants, and access to public lands. Please welcome Amelia England.
Lais Martinez currently serves as the inaugural Assistant Commissioner for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at the Utah System of Higher Education. In this role, she works to address systematic change through advocacy, policy, and funding efforts. Lais also advises state leaders on existing systematic barriers to underrepresented students' success. Previous to her time at the system office, she worked both at Utah Valley University and USU Eastern, dedicating her time to directly advising students and their families on college opportunities. She is most proud of her time working in Latinos in Action, AVID, TRIP, and Gear Up, college readiness classrooms, engaging students in writing their personal statements and developing young leaders using culturally sustaining paradigms in hip hop. Lais has a master in education, culture, and society from University of Utah. Lais, we're gonna let Becky lead our panel.
I'm gonna give you your mics.
Awesome.
You have one?
Yeah, that's great. Okay. This is a great opportunity for us together to learn from our amazing panelists and also to learn from you as women and business owners and people who are in the community trying to make a difference and make things better and get us out of some of the challenges that were mentioned there. We had a lot of cheering and a moment during the presentation that was kind of quiet because we all thought, wait a second, how is this possible? What can we do to try and make a difference? And I'm hoping that during our time together as a panel, we can answer some of these questions, and then we're going to have a great opportunity to hear from you, questions that you have, and to really get into some of the specifics about what you're experiencing in your own lives and how our panels can help solve every problem you have. It's not too big of a task. I think we're up to it. So let's just jump right in, and I have first question is just, you've all been in your fields for some time, right? You have learned a lot, you have a lot of experience, but I want you to take it back to the day when you were your very first job, maybe out of college, or maybe you had a job in your field when you were still in school, but your very first job and the worries and concerns you had at that point about being successful, about making a place for yourself in those fields. What would you tell yourself now? I mean, now, what would you tell yourself as that day one, new, bright-eyed, maybe a little bit scared, a little bit worried person? And we're going to start here with Lais.
Okay. So I would tell that person the same thing that I would tell myself.
And first of all, describe Lais at that stage. Where were you? What was your first job? What were some of the challenges you were mostly worried about?
Yeah, so my first job in higher ed, because prior to higher ed, I was a single mom, raising children and trying to get through college, pushing carts at Costco, and taking all odd-end jobs. But my first job in my career in higher ed was as a part-time admissions counselor at USU Eastern. And you know, given the background of being a single mom and being an adult learner as I was navigating the higher education system, I really was wondering, like, what is my value add? What do I bring to the table? You know, and it's the same thing that I asked myself today. And what I would tell myself is take space, you know, because your unique lived experiences help you see the world and navigate the world just slightly differently, and will be able to help you advocate on behalf of students across the state of Utah.
I love that. I love that the message is the same today for you in your jobs now. You're still thinking of these same things. What value do I have? What do I add? And the answer is the same. Take space. Hold on to that. Own your perspective.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Amelia.
Yes, so I came from an academic background. I sort of imagined myself pretty much all through high school and college that I was going to be a professor, or maybe kind of venture off into like some nonprofit territory, or you know, run a gallery or something. I don't know. So, yeah, during my undergrad and my graduate, looking back on that, what I really want to tell that 20-something is to really like embrace outside of academia and kind of like work in professional development or networking, or to kind of understand a little bit more of my real world expertise or my real world tactics. And that was really hard for me because I kind of used academia as like a way to put on blinders, and it was really scary to think of myself outside of that. And so I would go back to say that to Amelia at Oregon State. So, and that's just mostly as I have gone out into my career and worked more in the tech space. It's been addictive and like inspiring to like solve all these kind of real world problems or develop products or sort of run through walls to get problems solved. Whereas I think in my master's program, I was like, all right, I'm safe in the four walls of a classroom, and I can just look at my students and kind of work through everything with them, which is very noble and incredible. And but it did make it hard for me to picture myself outside of that.
Yeah, the framework that was kind of the safety also in a way became a barrier
Right.
for expanding other opportunities.
Right.
Is that
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. I'm already thinking these in my life too. These are really poignant. All right, bring us home. What are your thoughts?
When I first got out of college, I started at a law firm in Missouri. I was born and raised in Missouri, and I do legal technology. And being in tech as a woman, 25 years ago, in the Midwest was not really accepted. So I remember kind of getting out of college and just going to a space of the unknown. I'm like, I went to school, I got my background in legal and in tech, and I'm excited, and I go to a law firm, and they were like, where's John? And I was like, I'm Nicole, I'll be a trial technician for this week. And it was just very surprising to me because I had never experienced that before. And I think through the different challenges that I faced in a male-dominant industry, and especially in the legal industry, I would go back and tell myself, be confident in what you know and what you do, because that's what brought me through my career, is my confidence and just bringing my knowledge to the table and just continue to educate myself.
I love that. I want to just circle back really quickly on each one of your stories. Can you share a time you missed out on an opportunity or an experience because of the expectations you were either putting on yourself or falling prey to expectations around you? The where's John, the assumptions about what your career is going to be, and some of the logistical challenges. You know, you're coming into your career, you're a single mom, you've got all these other things. What as you look back has been left on the table because of not pushing, not holding your own space, not seeing the expansion, or not being able to see yourself in that space as well. What did you miss out on?
I mean, I think that I'm sitting in the seat today because I haven't missed opportunities. I've taken every chance that I've been given and just kind of opened the door wide open. I think a big part of that is remembering my purpose and being extremely grounded in my purpose. I am the daughter of immigrant parents and immigrant grandparents. My grandmother only had access to an 8th grade education. My mother never was able to get her associate's degree. And so I carry those stories in every space and room that I'm in, advocating for better policies, practices for students in higher ed. So yeah.
When you're saying that, I'm reminded of Julia's comments at the beginning that you're holding that legacy in your life, and to hear you say that, it's really poignant. Yeah, thank you.
I think I missed out on like the mentor and networking. At least I should have really started it early, seeking out like women who just knew that they could set aside some time for me formally to talk about their career paths, problem solving, barriers that they overcame, and really put that in context as like a journey in front of me. I think I sort of assumed that just sort of hanging around or working really hard or sort of rolling up my sleeves would prove myself in some way, but what's been just like irreplaceable and like invaluable for me is to really directly and explicitly talk to women who can help put my career path in context. And I really should have started that when I was 18, so.
This is a no regrets moment here. We don't have enough time to talk about all of our like would have, should have, could have. But I think it's useful to think, yeah, actually because your paths have clearly taken you into amazing places, but there are things that may have been left behind. Nicole.
I'm thinking with Laisa on this one is that I really drove for all the opportunities, whether they were presented or whether they were something that I just went after. Having been, I think it was 26 when I moved to DC by myself to take an opportunity, and then on to New York, which was extremely scary coming from the Midwest to go to the Manhattan. It's just taking those opportunities. I was so focused in my career that I just was like searching for the mentors and the opportunities and the different organizations that I could be a part of to help me grow in my career. Like, it was just a sponge. I've been a sponge all my life and excited to learn more and to know more. I think maybe if I had to choose a missed opportunity, it actually would have been social media. I was very turned off to social media, and I was in my bubble of education and just like the old school way of doing it. I'll take a class, I'll read an article, I'll read a book. And when I started opening up to the idea of LinkedIn and other different kind of sources, I learned so much more from other people and their real life experiences. So I wish I kind of would have gotten on that bandwagon a little bit sooner, because I think that just would have expanded me even more with, just learning, so.
Yeah. As I think about any type of business setting, and in many cases, I've spoken with a few of you before we began, and I know this is probably not any different for you, but how many times have you been the only woman in the room, one of the few women in the room? I mean, that's not an anomaly, right? How many of you, raise your hands, only woman, is that like once in your lifetime or all the time? Yeah, and so there's some challenges with that in terms of understanding the culture, understanding a lot of the unwritten rules, sort of in systems, in different settings, and needing almost a translator to understand. That's, I think, where the power of mentorship really, really comes in handy. And these two, can I just give you two a shout out? Please, a little hand raised to the two of you. These two women have been mentors and supporters for each other for how many years? Yeah, for 5 years, and they were just sharing with me how powerful that experience has been. I'd like to circle back to mentors in your lives, and we'll start with you, Amelia. With how has a mentor in your life helped shape your understanding of, I mean, the basic stuff, like what to wear, how do you engage with other people in the workplace, how do you conduct conversations? I mean, let's get into some of the nuts and bolts, and what are some of those like golden nuggets that a mentor has shared with you, and has, now this is, I'm realizing like 10 questions, but we're just gonna throw them out there. And how has it changed your approach to being a mentor for other people?
I think my earliest mentors were all professors, for sure. I come from a family with a couple of professors, and their colleagues were just like so dazzling to me, just like the work that they were doing, the commitment to, and like the passion in largely like a humanities realm, but also some kind of cool projects outside of that. That was really just the commitment in like a personal creativity and a personal drive was really incredible that I saw there. And then more recently, actually Elizabeth Nebeker has been like a huge inspiration for me because she works a lot alongside of a lot of our sister company efforts. And it's just been so reassuring to like talk to, you know, problems that she's working on and how she kind of networks and moves among a lot of different stakeholders from like a huge variety of industries, you know, and that's just been really incredible. And then I do have a couple of male mentors right now at ISO Talent. Austin Miller has been really great at pointing out things that that I overlook, and it's never critical. It's just something that he's like, this could be like this could be a little hack for you, right? He pointed out how first impressions, and I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, it's just something to keep in mind. He said that a consultant noticed that I use the word I feel a lot, or I think. And he said there's nothing wrong with that, it just seems to be sort of prevalent for you. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do kind of come across as emotive and sort of like instinctual, whereas sometimes I just need to kind of cut through that and get to the point. And he brought that to my attention in a way that was like, oh, thank you. Like, I really need to know this. So yeah, I think I've had a variety of those mentors, especially in the last year as I've gone into the tech industry. So.
I think that's, just kidding. That is a really valuable thing to have these people that are going to share some like really useful things to you. How have you allowed that to sit well with you and not feel hurt or in your vulnerability?
Yes.
How have you handled that?
Yes, I always like to, I need to give myself about 3 hours before I actually react to anything. So I'm like, okay, all right, I'm gonna just kind of like let that sit in my stomach a little bit, digest it. There's gonna be like a little wave of nausea, and then I'm gonna be fine, right?
It's a very real moment.
Yeah.
It's so true. Okay.
Yeah. So I do like to give myself a little bit of a timeout, and then ride that wave a little bit, and then come back to it with sort of a more productive plan of action, or to say, got it, and then move forward. So that's my trick.
Yeah, I love that. Nicole, mentors.
Mentors. I love my mentors. They've been in my life for a long time. One of my mentors I met when I first moved to New York, and I was working at a very large law firm, which is very intimidating. And I went to a room with 20 attorneys in it, and it was myself and then one other female attorney. And they asked a question, and I answered it, and I sat there, and I was scared out of my mind. But I was confident in what I was saying because I knew my stuff, I studied, you know? And at the end of the meeting, we were getting up to leave, and she looked at me and she said, now it just escaped me. It was so powerful. she said, "You deserve to be here." And she looked at me and smiled. And from that point on, we were in so many meetings together. She's now the general counsel of JP Morgan Chase. And this woman is moving mountains. She is pushing diversity, equity, inclusion throughout JP Morgan Chase. She's making changes in the legal industry and just how it functions. She is a woman with a voice, and it was just, I was so fortunate to be in that meeting and to get to have that connection with her, and then to build a relationship with her afterwards, because her and I were in more meetings and we got to talk a lot more. So she mentored me just a lot about kind of being in that position. I think she saw me and said, "Oh, I think Nicole's like a little me." So she kind of took me under her wing, which I loved. And then my other mentor, I met 25 years ago when I was first out of college starting that job. She turned into my best friend. She actually sent me this bracelet this morning because she knew I was coming to this event. And it's Morse code for badass. And she was like, "Nicole, this is for you. Good luck today."
We're gonna need that Morse code to be sent out on the RSVP for this event.
But she's amazing, and it's just really great to have a mentor that I can call her and say, "Hey, I'm having this issue at work, or I'm having an issue with an employee. How would you handle this, or how would you respond to this?" And it's just really nice to have her there both ways, for her and I just to kind of like ping ideas and issues or troubles off one another. So I really think that mentorship is really powerful, and not only helping you with your career, but then just on so many other levels as well.
Now, you had both of those experiences. The female attorney, JP Morgan, she approached you, and your other friend, the bracelet friend, which honestly is a good friend. That sounds like it was a friendship that was supportive, mutually supportive. Why don't we see more of this? How can we encourage, or if we're not experiencing that in our professional lives or personal lives, how do we approach somebody? Actually, that's going to be the next question. We're going to go to ladies and hear your answer, and then we'll start with you on, if you don't have a mentor, how do you find one? How do you approach someone and basically say, "Hey, I want you to be a change maker in my life and be my new mentor"? How do you do that? All right, ladies.
So many questions. Good questions. Okay, so I like to think about this through the traditional idea of mentorship, where I, work at a system office of higher education for Utah, and I also get to advise with, for example, the vice chancellor of the Pennsylvania system of higher education, who is also doing equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives. And so I like to make sure that I am counseling and advising with other folks in the same kind of area. But then I also really lean on non-traditional forms of mentorship that are not always, like top-down or the formal ways that we think of mentorship. I also really lean upon my friendships. Like Nicole was mentioning, Diane Acevedo is someone who I have, counseled with for a very, very long time as we navigated undergrad and then grad school, and then our first careers, our first jobs after grad school. But then also a lot in community, advising with folks who are living experiences of disparities, especially when it comes to education, and really talking and counseling with them about what is needed to better support and change their trajectories.
Can you share a little bit about the role Latinas in Action has played in your life? Because this, I think, is one of the hallmarks of that organization, and they're amazing.
Yeah, I love Latinos in Action. And I love it for the reach that it has to reach many Latinx students across the state of Utah. They're in about 100 classrooms across the state. And so when I was an admissions counselor at UVU, I would go into those classrooms and talk with students, engage with with them, ask them what was important to them, what their dreams were, what their visions were for, you know, after high school, also how they saw themselves. This was during 2016, so the political climate in the country was impacting their self-worth and their identities.
Things have gotten so much better since then.
Becky, I love your sense of humor. And so, you know, just being able to hold space and have those honest conversations with those students, and then also be able to share, guess what? Did you know that you could be an ambassador at Utah Valley University? That you could bring your leadership skills and really get paid to go to college? And it was like, you would see in the room like, what? I can do that? Yes. Because so often we think about leadership through very traditional ways. Did I participate in student government, right? And sometimes these students couldn't, you know, they were helping their families, you know, work while they were in high school, or they were taking care of younger siblings. And so planting the seed of idea and possibility that yes, you can walk into these leadership positions, and you can also get paid for it, because compensation is really important to me. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, this is going to be a real moment here. I'm going to ask each of you, we're going to start with Nicole, and come around. You see someone in a setting at work or whatever, and you think, I want that person in my life. I think I could learn a lot, but they're not seeing you in that way, or they're not thinking, they're not being like the woman who's telling you the things, and in your experience as well. Real world sentence, how do you approach that person? Give us the pitch. You're with that person, what do you say to them to basically insert yourself into their lives?
Becky, you wanna go to Starbucks?
Okay.
That's really where it can start too. It's taking that person outside of the work environment, if that's where they're at, to step out and just have a real conversation, have an authentic conversation, and ask questions. If I'm, curious just about developing in a certain area or interested in advancing in my career, it's asking the questions and then just building a relationship. You'll be really surprised how many women are just so open and excited to speak to other women, to help them, to nurture them, to answer questions, to do whatever. I would offer any time that I had to sit down to jump on a Zoom or anything with another woman, and it's really giving back because so many women have done that for me. But I've absolutely done that. I've seen a woman, I'm like, wow, she's really cool, she's really powerful, she knows her stuff, and and really curious about X, Y, or Z, and I'll just be like, hey, do you want to step out and have a drink or coffee or anything like that, and then just start building that relationship.
Yeah, okay. So you've just demystified this. It's not going to be certain prescriptive sentence. It's just getting mileage with somebody, just seeing them outside the normal setting and starting to build a genuine relationship with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Love that. Okay, ladies.
I mean, I think she said it, she nailed it on the head, I'm all about the organic conversations that can happen. And going back to flipping mentorship upside down, right? Like this idea that I was going into Latinos in Action to try and mentor students, but really they were mentoring me. They were teaching me about their lived experiences, right? So I just think that that's so important to note when we're trying to engage with different people, that it's a reciprocal. It's give and take, and yeah.
I love that. All right, Amelia, how's it done?
You can just announce it into a microphone like I just did with most of it, so congratulations. But something I think like a privilege of working with women or just being in these kind of innovative spaces is that yes, it's like you already have that, you already have women who are building grit in like non-traditional ways, and they're already opening up diverse problem solving, and they're already like dealing with sort of any sort of disenfranchisement or ways that they feel muted or silenced, or they're finding non-traditional ways to solve that problem. And so to just ingrain that in yourself and see other women and be like, they're already primed to talk to you and they're already so excited about what you're working on. And to have that kind of faith and that bond with women in your workplace or your friend group or anything like that. So yeah, that's been for me, like traditional mentor playbooks are like a dime a dozen, you know, if you've had a fairly traditional pathway. The women that I've connected with in my life are from anywhere and everywhere, and they've solved every possible problem that they could. So just trust that, especially, like I said, if I could go back to myself when I was in college, just trust that all of the women around you want to help you, and it's going to be very rare that they're going to shut you down. So.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's been my experience. Just this past week, I was somewhere, and there was a college intern who was helping in this setting, and I asked her what she was majoring in, and she said communications and poli-sci. I'm like, oh, that's super interesting. I love both those subjects. And she did not know what was coming. And she said, oh, that's cool. And I said, what are you going to do next semester? I'm going to try and be an intern at the Utah State Capitol. I'm like, oh, are you serious? I'm like, here is my number. Call me. Who are you interviewing with? When is it happening? Call me the night before. I mean, I think I laid it on a little too heavy. I was into it. Kaylee, I don't even know her last name, is getting a call from me the night before. But I think you're right. I think that's something that is very, very typical for women. And let's give each other the opportunity to share and help each of us grow. Thank you. What are some of the challenges? Now we saw the frowny face slide about Utah is 50th. I mean, this is true. They're not making this up. This is true for 5 years in a row. And the research actually is judging on women's equity or equality actually based on in the workplace, the metrics around workplace, political engagement.
Yeah.
And what's the third area?
So I think
Yeah.
it's the gender pay gap might fall into
Okay.
that.
That was 49th.
Yeah.
49th in gender wage difference.
Percentage of women in the workforce,
Yeah.
all of that.
So these are, I mean, my mom was a high school teacher for 30 years at Provo High. And let me use teacher words here for a second. The teachers would say, we have room to improve. And this is gonna be another real moment. Share a time when you have experienced something, we're starting with ladies, where you think this workplace or this person or this experience right now has room to improve. I'm being shut down, I'm being ignored, what's an experience like that you would put in that, like you were writing notes on that slide, say, yeah, I actually felt this, I experienced this. Share a time when that happened, something like that for you.
I mean, if I'm being extremely candid,
This is a safe space, yes.
I think that is something that in my line of work happens almost on a daily, you know? I'm sitting in rooms that were not designed or created for people that look like me. And I am in rooms where I look around the room and, you know, we're talking about gender right now, but when you think about the intersectionalities of identities and we add in both visible and invisible identities, right? So often I look around and I am the only person that looks like me. And so it's a constant battle with imposter syndrome, with racial battle fatigue, having to explain myself.
At the risk of asking you to explain yourself,
Yeah.
share what that feels like, because that is a burden, that is fatigue,
Yeah.
over and over and over, and, share.
Yeah, I mean, you feel it in your body. It courses, the anxiety courses through your body, and you question, do I belong here? Do I belong in this space? Again, going back to what is my value add? And Oprah Winfrey, we're gonna go Soul Sunday here. She talks about bringing all of her ancestors with her into spaces. And so I'm constantly doing that work of calling my ancestors into the room and recognizing that I am here because of their resiliency. And so because of that, I definitely do belong. And again, going back to that, taking space, and not just for myself, but ensuring that I am not here in this position to speak on behalf of underrepresented communities, that I am finding ways to intentionally open the door and create spaces for more folks like me to be in the room and to speak on their lived experiences for themselves.
Yeah, the power of stories. Thank you. All right, Amelia.
I was thinking about that so much as you were saying it. I haven't, I've definitely been, I definitely have the privilege of sitting pretty comfortably in spaces where I don't have to worry too much about, I don't have to question my presence there as much because of my race, because of my background, because of my family support, and really bringing in that intersectionality for other women is just like something that we all have to continuously be on the vanguard for. But it does really ring true, like the battle fatigue for me of kind of always worrying that if I'm anxious about something or worrying if I'm like facing some kind of block or adversity, it does take labor for me to think about whether or not because this person is responding to my gender, for example. And kind of separating that out and making sure that I'm like trying to look at it in as clear terms as possible so I don't kind of overreact to it is very taxing. And so for me, it's never like any sort of real strike or singular moment when I felt like, how did you phrase it, when there's been like a problem. It's more sort of a drip or like this insidious thing that sort of takes over long term on teams. So I think that's like it's vague, but it's there. And I would say the ways that it's manifested for me in my workplaces is, and I was thinking about this when Diane talked to me about it, is how visible am I because I'm being helpful or accommodating? How visible am I because I'm like willing to drop things and help people get their, meet their goals or their objectives? And how often is that kind of barring me from larger leadership opportunity or connecting with people in my space who have much more power and influence as opposed to just someone who can be helpful and accommodating, right? So I think that's the way that it's kind of manifested for me in like the corporate space is worrying that I'm only visible because I am low maintenance in some way is my thing that keeps me up at night for sure.
Yeah, because that's seen as a strength in some settings, but
yes.
in a business setting, that can really be a barrier
Right.
to being seen for your whole,
Yes,
everything
yes.
you bring.
And I would say that the best kind of antidote to that, and kind of a lot with like calling in your ancestors or calling in sort of some strength or backup. For me, the wellspring for that is really trying to build up my self-esteem for things outside of work and working on things with my partner or my creative projects. that gives me a lot of power and self-esteem in the more corporate and professional spaces, because I'm like, hey, you know, I might not be able to answer this question, or I don't have a lot of experience in this, but I can definitely talk about rock climbing with you. So that's helpful for me.
That's a really good one. All right, Nicole.
I would have to say I had an experience at one of my positions where I was in a position where I wasn't valued at all, and I was in meetings or in discussions where I was consistently cut off because I was a woman, or just dismissed. I've had it in different forms, like in other ways growing up, just like throughout my career, but this one kind of hit me to my core because it rocks you a little bit. It's just like, what am I doing differently? What am I doing wrong? And you really reflect on yourself to like, what am I doing? And then it's like, how can I react differently to change this behavior? And so it was really leading with a lot of compassion and empathy for the people that I was working with and that were kind of approaching the situations in this way. And even trying to help educate them on listening and or communicating in different ways. It just wasn't receptive. And so I have to say, this is not the typical Nicole. And I don't consider it giving up. I consider it standing up for myself. I valued myself enough that I left that position and I found another place that valued me, that valued my voice. And I got a lot of my confidence back. I got my just inner happiness back. It really can take a lot out of you. And I would just say that if you're ever in a position like that, that you don't have to stay there. There's so many opportunities for you, and that you can move on to somewhere else that appreciates you, that values you, because everyone here brings value to the table, and everyone here should be shown appreciation for what they do. So.
Okay, specifically, methods or resources. So strategies when you are faced. So you've just shared one, like just remove yourself from this toxic workplace that sometimes we're so acculturated to think that's the norm that we don't even realize. So sometimes it takes other people to recognize it and say, you know, this is happening in your life, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but what are some methods, specific methods that you've tried or you've seen be effective, or resources? If this is a podcast or a book or someone that you look to, when you are faced with these situations. And Amelia, we'll start with you.
Yeah, kind of a continuation of what I said earlier of like, make sure, it's been so reassuring to build up my projects, that overlap with work but are outside of work and involved in my friends. It just like, it feels so empowering and so reassuring to visualize yourself outside of these like very niche problems that kind of eat away at you at work. So really just equip yourself with that self-esteem for sure. And then I would say, for me, it's very reassuring to, I used to be really scared of this as far as like seeking out kind of educational materials that I would like listen to on the train or something like that, because I was like, no, I can't, like I need to give myself like my own space, which is very important. Please turn things off. But it's been really reassuring over this last year to just listen to other experts, and it helps me like externalize a lot of my feelings and work through things and not feel like I'm just kind of solving problems in a vacuum. And that's especially helpful if you do work on a team where you feel kind of siloed or isolated. You just gotta like reach out into the void a little bit and find somebody to grab your hand. So I think those those kind of resources are really helpful.
Do you have someone specifically that you'd suggest folks listen to?
I love all of the, just like I listen to a variety of like marketing professional podcasts, just kind of like, I think I have like 5 that I just sort of rotate through. And then I would say the calming Zen guy is Eckhart Tolle. I don't know how to say his last name, but it's just so
No
great
one
to listen. Yes, he's got a very calming voice, and then and he sort of has these little lectures that you can listen to on podcasts. And the best thing about him is he's always like, whatever you are experiencing is probably a projection or a dream of some kind, and you're deceiving yourself to an extent. And learning to sort of distance yourself from those thoughts and those sort of anxieties has been really helpful. So I'll like listen to those while I'm on the train or when I just kind of need like a soothing time to myself.
Awesome, thank you. Nicole?
I would say the resources that, I'm not gonna start with resources. I'm just gonna say that it all kind of comes back to mental health. I think it's really important that whatever situation that you're dealing with, a lot of the times we don't realize the emotional or mental toll that it's taking on us. And it's not only in the moment that it's happening, but practicing it on a daily basis of what are you doing for yourself to bring you to that calm and kind of collected and peaceful state when you wake up, and very, what energizes you, what empowers you. I read a lot of books. I don't have time to read a lot of books. I sure try. I have like 5 all started, but I'm really excited about finishing all of them. There's another guy that my husband just turned me on to. His name is Gary Vee. Apparently everybody knows about him but me. But ever since he turned me on to this guy, I, just watching his, I feel like I'm so old. I think they're called reels. I just spit it in my head. I think my husband said it was a reel. But I get so excited and like, yes, tomorrow is going to be a great day. And I am just so energized and like kind of repassionated before I go to bed and when I wake up in the morning. And it's just like finding those tools to really bring you back to those places, because I think then when you approach the situation, you approach it differently, because you're in kind of like that calm and easy space. But it's really being proactive and making sure that your mental health is in a good space, because it's very easy in a lot of industries and even a lot of situations in school and whatever your circumstance is, to get to a space without realizing that you're getting there.
Yeah. Thank you. And yes, they are called reels.
Real life.
That's awesome. All right, ladies.
So professionally, I read a lot of Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, Toni Morrison, Gloria Anzaldúa. These are my social justice heroes, my elders. And so I really read upon their words to kind of inspire me and guide me. Personally, I just got hooked on Jay Shetty. His podcast
I hope someone's writing down all these notes. Who's the note taker in the room? Thank you. Okay.
His podcast is amazing, and it's all centered around mental health. And so I really love that. And then get you a bestie that will give you the best pep talks. Like, that's so needed. Yes. Right, front and center. Best pep talker ever.
Absolutely. I think it's so useful to think about something that you're ending every day with, you're starting every day with, or you have like sort of set into a pattern of your day, so that you end up kind of depending on that. And they can be really powerful kind of tone setters for the situation that you're in. I'm going to give you each an opportunity. And did we start with? Okay, Nicole, we started with you on this one. Okay, I'm trying to like switch it up.
Appreciate
Do you
that.
want us to do a Q&A? Do you want us to?
Oh, yeah, exactly. How about we're gonna close? This will be our last. Yeah.
We're just gonna do a Q&A. Yeah. like
Oh,
a
Q&A.
With the audience, yeah. She's gonna
Yeah,
do
yeah,
not question.
perfect.
Oh, that's what you meant. I don't mean close.
No, not closed.
Stay there.
The doors in the back are closed. No one leaves till 3. No. I'm gonna ask one more question, then we'll go to Q&A.
Perfect. I love
How about
it.
that?
Thank you.
Okay, be thinking of your questions. So knowing that this is our last panel question, I'm very curious how you can be a strong advocate for yourself and for others without falling into some of the traps that women do fall into. You're this label, kind of people have reclaimed badass, quite honestly, so that's a positive, I guess. But you know, you're this label, you're this label, you're this label. How do you reclaim yourself and your space? And especially if you're coming in a non-traditional way. Maybe you're a woman who's re-entering the workforce. Maybe you're a woman who's transitioning between one field to another field. Maybe you have intersectionality of seen and unseen experiences in your life that are not being recognized or appreciated. How do you advocate for that not in the workplace necessarily? We've talked a lot about workplace, and this is a workplace setting, but in relationships in general. How do you stand for yourself? And this is kind of a piggyback on some of the other things, but I'm just going to give you this. It's like tie all of everything you've said in a nice little bow, and then we'll go to Q&A. We'll start with Nicole.
Okay. I would just say to be your true authentic self, to be compassionate and empathetic, because that is what drives relationships, that's what builds relationships, that's what maintains relationships. And I think if you lead with compassion and you lead with empathy, that everything else will follow. Definitely, I believe the confidence will follow with that. I believe the relationships will. And I just think that a lot of the times in the workplace, or even when we're rushing from one place to the next, that we're so busy in what we're doing that we're not thinking about others. And that's what's really important in the world, right? It's the people here, it's the people around us, and it's being compassionate and empathetic to everything that's going on in their lives. It's not only yours, it's theirs, the people you're interacting with, the people that you're driving on the street with. You don't know what's going on in their life, so it's always keeping that in the forefront, because I think you see things change when you keep that in mind.
Thank you. That's excellent. All right, ladies.
I'm going to piggyback off of the first one. So showing up authentically, it means that so oftentimes as women in these like workshops around women in the workforce, so often I feel like it's about how do we assimilate in the workspace. And really I want to like push and move away from that idea of assimilating in the workspace, because then nothing changes, right? So if we're all showing up in our authentic selves, that's, I really think, how we shift cultural change, which is, you know, it takes time, but I think that's really important. So that would be mine.
Love that. Amelia.
Yes, I would add to compassion and authenticity. I 100% agree, and then I would add like curiosity would be, it's a way to talk to people, it's a way to leverage your compassion, it's a way to open up and sort of rethink the conversations and sort of disrupt the norm that's going on around you. And it does, it allows you to take up like your full kind of authentic space. It allows you to be compassionate and vulnerable because you are keen to know more and you are keen to connect with other people. So that's what I would add.
Thank you so much. These words are so powerful. Curiosity, courage, compassion, and the value of relationships and honoring your own experience, those who came before, and the people that you are undoubtedly preparing to mentor in the future. Thank you so much. Are they the best?
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Please don't be shy.
Here's your first question.
Oh. Okay. Second question, first you.
Okay. I just wanted to ask if there were any resources that you wish that you had access to or that existed as you were getting started in your careers that could be developed or would have helped you a lot.
I would say opportunities to network. I think that's really huge, you know, building a community that is going to uplift you and strengthen you, I think is really important. So networking opportunities, but authentic network opportunities.
I would say someone needed to show me how to fill out a LinkedIn profile. I was like, I put my jobs on, right? And then it's like, no, they're like, no, there's a whole thing. So that would have been nice to know a long time ago.
I would say podcast for me. The whole TED Talks, I hear a lot about it. I'll have to admit, I've never watched a TED Talk. I also don't know how to watch a podcast. And I'm in technology. Like, it's kind of scary that I'm in technology and I don't know these things, but it's true. But that's one thing that I definitely feel like that I missed out on because I feel like I could have learned so much more from the podcast because I think they have a lot to offer.
I'd like to hear from each of you, and Becky too, what are you most excited for either personally or professionally in the next year?
Well, this is my second year in Utah. Our family just moved here a year and a half ago, so we are absolutely loving the state of Utah. We love all the people that we've met. I love this organization. As soon as I saw them post about it, I'm like, this is amazing. I love this, yes. Just the growth. I think that Utah is growing. I think Utah is becoming more aware. And I love to see that. I love to be a part of it, however I can. And for me personally, I just think I'm really excited about being here and meeting more people. The state of Utah has beautiful, beautiful people, very kind and generous, and we've really loved the move here. So it's great, and I know that there's just so much that we haven't uncovered yet, so I'm excited about that too.
I'm trying to think of like a specific cool event that everybody should come to. Yeah, similarly, like I love how I've lived here my whole life, and all of my friends that I've made over the last couple of years have been from out of state, and it's just like there's like curmudgeonly Utahns, and then there's like people who are like, yes, we're so happy you're here. So I am really excited about just all the kind of new connections and the transplants coming in, and the diversity of backgrounds and experiences. And then I would say, like solving problems in Utah that have kind of just run a script over and over again. Having like those new perspectives on like environmental issues, social justice issues, diversity in like our talent pool, tech and innovation. It just feels like it was like one script, and then it's like 800 scripts right now. So I like that a lot.
So in higher ed specifically, over the last 2 years, we've been really focused on changing the material conditions of students through policy, practice, and procedure. It has, been very data-driven, and I'm really looking forward to, in this coming year, focusing on opportunities to create transformative spaces of healing, especially for staff and faculty across the state of Utah. So,
I love that. I've had the great privilege over the past, during my public service, but over the past year and a half specifically, to be around the state of Utah and to hear people's stories. And it has been, I use the word privilege intentionally because it's been awesome. And I think there's a real barrier to when people feel isolated in their experiences, whether they're just a political persuasion or perspective or challenges. And that isolation is really hard on all of us. I love the focus in some of these answers about mental health, as I am a social worker by practice, and so this is something that I care about deeply professionally, but also in how it creates communities and also the impact it has on politics. So looking forward to some projects I'm working on to identify, amplify, and share stories of people around the state. Some may be high profile people, some may be just everyday Utahns. Any of you maybe who could share stories in your own life where you have had an issue that was divisive and you came together for a solution, working with someone maybe across the aisle, across a political perspective or professional perspective, and how you moved for solutions and to make things better. And I'm looking forward to having an opportunity to use my voice, my platform to share those stories.
That's awesome. Any other questions? Back there,
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I work in commercial real estate, which is the wild, wild west of political correctness and all those things. And I kind of sat in the back, so I was a couple minutes late, but I saw so many women just shaking their head. How do we get men to hear this? How do we get our male colleagues? How do we create awareness? We're only not even half of our workforce, you know, like how do we create this equity not only among women, but how do we get our male colleagues to these events? How do we change it from there, from that perspective?
Thank you for that, because I was going to ask that same question, right? Because male allyship is a very passionate foundation for a lot of what I do. So great question for bringing that up, because I think it's important in terms of elevating our voice in the workplace.
I'll start with this from the perspective of helping all people in an environment see that there's a real value to women's voices, women's experiences, and the value in the workplace too. So to the bottom line, I mean, we're not just saying women are awesome because they're women. No, women contribute a tremendous amount to the economy of our state. We add value day in, day out, over and over. And so if we're looking at this as an issue that is a challenge, which it is, it will be useful to be able to address that challenge from this perspective, from here, all a variety of perspectives, and go to the language that's already being understood by the person you're trying to bring on board as an ally. And I found this over and over in the legislature. I would try and talk about an issue that was important from like a human standpoint or a justice standpoint or whatever, and let's say the environment, and talk about our equality in the environment from one perspective. And my colleagues, most of whom were male, it didn't hit for them until it became an economic issue. And then that's fine with me. I can talk about clean air and the environment from that perspective too, because that made sense too. And so I found over and over that finding ways to bring people to the conversation and get buy-in from them sometimes meant that I had to leave my initial pitch on an issue, put that aside for a second, and pitch it from a language they already understood. And that was hard, because I'm like, I don't just want to talk about the economic bottom line. It's really important for these reasons too. But that was something that had been tried and wasn't actually creating impact, but the other did, and the other moved the needle.
I love that, because Derek Bell talks about interest convergence, and you're speaking to that, right? Is this idea that sometimes the social moral imperative is not what's going to win folks over. And so how do we find other entry points to reach people is really, really important. And then I think the other thing that I would say on this is Dr. Bernice King. She recently was here in Salt Lake and talked about, you know, the day of allyship is long gone. We need co-conspirators in equity and justice work. And so I guess I would just have us think about how do we bring our male counterparts as co-conspirators in our well-being, in our thriving, in our lives moving forward.
I think this is the most difficult question so far. Yeah, I think in the male spaces that I've worked in, there has been there's a moral imperative. There are things that that these men are very passionate about, or that they will devote their sort of executive mindset to try to solve, or to network with other men in their ecosystem, and their, you know. And so I think the drive and the motivation they'll kind of choose, and these are very important issues for them, whether it's like a political objective or a religious objective or a community or some way to solve the business operations. You know, it's like those things all get like the full fire and force, right? But then sometimes they'll shy away from something that kind of tinges of political correctness, for example, because the approach is all wrong, or it's not realistic, or, you know, they have this sort of, they tend to lean on this like pragmatist language of like, well, if we just I don't know, it's always kind of like disguising behind that's not practical, or that's misguided in some way, right? That's a way of distancing themselves from it. At least that's what I've experienced. I'm not trying to pigeonhole all men, right? But I think that it's not my job, obviously, to accommodate them and be like a cheerleader for them or anything like that, or like change my reactions to things. But I do think that it is like a practical approach to kind of like ask more questions about them, take it with a little bit of lighthearted humor, add a little bit of, you know, personal experience to it, so there is that kind of like compassionate tie. And when that is when that can be like a safe space and it's like enjoyable and you're kind of trying to work through a problem together, I think the response is more positive and more consistent in those male-dominated spaces. So I don't know how concrete that is, which is why, as I said, that's the most difficult question so far. So thank you.
Maybe one more question. Nicole, did you have one more question? From anyone?
My question is, I feel like we see a lot of these statistics, right? We see a lot about what the problems are. And I'm a woman who can start a conversation and can ask for more money or can ask for what I think I value at. But where do I find out what exactly that is as opposed to my male counterparts? How do I research that? Glassdoor salary doesn't tell you men in your job are being paid this and women in your job are being paid that. So it's really hard to know. Sometimes you feel comfortable with where you're at, but you could be selling yourself short. And so this is kind of for everybody. I don't know how we find that information. Like
TransparentUtah.org.
Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your insights and experiences. Thank you for the audience, for your questions. It is imperative that we as women take charge. We're problem solvers. That's innate within ourselves. And we have never, our ancestors and women before us, they've set the path for us. And today, society today, it is more accessible for women to progress. So what are we doing in order order to elevate each other, elevate our voices, link arms. There's so many resources. We are gonna send out an email with other organizations that are actually moving the needle so that you guys can network with them. We would invite you to communicate with your male allies. We have had really positive experiences in the workforce and very negative ones as well. But let's focus on the positive. Let's focus on what we can do. Let's do self-reflection and identify things that we can improve on in order to change the way we're perceived, or how we can communicate better to prove our point or drive the information that we would like to do, like it has been shared here. So thank you all for being here, for joining us and supporting us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to do a raffle now, so if you have a ticket, pull it out really fast, and we're going to grab, Diane's going to grab some of our raffle prizes first.
Who doesn't have a ticket?
Oh, if you don't have a ticket, we can get you one. Okay, good. Do you guys have raffle tickets too?